What would you like to talk about today?
A while ago, we asked for topics for morning conversations.
We did.
And we got a bunch. And this one came from a person who is not involved in mastering alchemy, and so has no tools. And what they were asking, or it was more of an observation, they were observing that, gee, over the last few years, my level of moodiness has risen, and I feel angry quickly, and I have anxiety and depression, and all these emotions are happening in my space, and I used to be a happy person. What's going on? So what we did is we decided to ask them, give me more information. What are you noticing? What's your habits? And what we came to the conclusion of was...
So one of the things that people bump into, and it's a very odd concept, is how is it possible something in my space does not belong to me? Well, it's my emotion. It's the thoughts in my head have to be my thoughts. No, they're not. So beginning just to have conversation from the standpoint of maybe that energy that's passing through you isn't your energy, or maybe those thoughts that you're thinking all the time aren't your thoughts. And right now one of the real challenges is, as the world is going through this kind of unraveling itself, expanding into a whole nother phase of life, there is a lot of disruption going on. And that disruption is interfering with everybody's status quo. So this is my life, I live here, this is how it works, I go to work, I come home, I watch television, I go to sleep, I get up, go to work, watch television. That's being disrupted in everybody's space. And you add coronavirus into it, massive disruption in everybody's space. And so one of the things that is happening is much of the energy that you are feeling doesn't belong to you. So it doesn't take much to get to this point where you look at the world today and say, is it a happy place to be? And pretty much everybody's pretty clear. There's a disruption, there's a lot of challenge, there's a lot of people being displaced in their homes all over the world. Employment levels are shaky. The 1% is gathering up all the money and everybody else is being left behind. All of that creates anxieties.
And this person was doing all right. They weren't in financial struggle. They had a good relationship. They were not really involved in any personal drama.
Yeah.
But what they did tell us was that they had not a great deal. They had some attention on the news and what's happening out there, and would come away from doom scrolling feeling those emotions.
Yeah. So this, as we kind of talked to that person, remember that conversation, one of the things that happens is the question is, what's wrong with me? Or better question is, does this energy belong to me? So that place of beginning to recognize energies, thoughts, emotions that are in the world, they're affecting my energy pattern, but they may not be my energy. So once you begin to recognize that many of the thoughts I hold, many of the beliefs that I hold aren't even mine, and then you start to recognize things like ancestral patterns, nationality, culture, ethnicity, this is how we do it, and all of a sudden that's not how it's being done anymore. That energy of that disruption of a community begins to be very disruptive in my space. So what we kind of began to talk to this person about is you have choices of looking at it a little bit differently. And so one of the very first things that we always talk about is, let me show you how to discern kind of where I start and where I stop, and use the tool of the rose. And begin to ask that first, and then secondly, begin to ask this question, is this mine?
And a lot of times, especially people who don't have tools, they think it is theirs because they're experiencing it.
Right, exactly. So once you begin to have the consideration that this may not be mine, you know, it's like, oh, I have a dirty shirt, so it's my fault that it's a dirty shirt. Well, maybe not. Maybe just brush it up against something. And yes, your shirt's dirty, but you can also, it's not yours.
Yeah,
wipe off the
wipe
dirt.
it off.
So in this case, though, the space where you begin to ask the question, I'm fine, but is this energy that I'm experiencing mine, this anxiety mine? And if you start to look around at the circumstances you're in, you go to work and you're fine when you walk in the door and you've been there for 5 minutes and all of a sudden there's this uncomfortableness in my space. I'm not uncomfortable, but everybody else is worried about X. So when you can begin to play with this word discerning, is it mine or is it the universe's game that's going on all around me? When you begin to play with that rose, you start to have a place of comfortably pausing and observing everything and then asking the question, whoa, is this mine or is this all the noise that I'm looking at? Allows you to simply recognize it's not mine, and amazingly it begins to be just let go of.
Another piece that they found helpful was the concept of present time. And sometimes, like when I was working with Kevin, our trainer, a few years ago, he suggested I track everything I do during the day. So everything I eat, how much water, what time I go to bed, what supplement, everything, so that I have a record that I can look back on and connect it to my mood or my workout or tracking my progress. And so what we suggested to this person that they do a similar thing where they not necessarily track everything they eat, but what else am I consuming? How long do I spend on Facebook? How long do I read newspapers? Tracking what else is in their present time world that might be affecting how they feel. Because when you're in it, there's a pattern, and a lot of times you're in it and you don't even recognize, oh, this is what I do every morning. I get up and I look at the news. Well, then I walk away feeling, so connecting the dots.
Yeah.
So tracking it somehow is helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And in the same context of present time, and rather than going, gee, I have this anxiety and continue to move along, kind of recognize, oh, I have this anxiety in present time, and kind of pause and then notice what's going on around you. Mm-hmm. And from that noticing, you have room to basically say, well, my wife was upset today, or my kid's sick today, or everybody's getting laid off at work today. And yet I'm fine, I'm not getting laid off. But so all of this vibrations, and then you've got layers of energetics. I mean, people all over the world, again, being displaced. Grief is enormous, disruption is enormous, fear is off the charts, and the whole world is vibrating in this something's wrong. But that something wrong may not be something wrong in your universe. Now, that doesn't mean you don't care about what's going on. It's simply, this is not mine. Now, how do I deal with this? But recognizing it's not mine, those thoughts I'm thinking, they have nothing to do with me, and they're passing through my space. So that tool, the rose, it's why it's virtually the number one tool we talk about and express. And it's something you do use all the time. It's not something that you go, oh, I read about it and I got it. No, you don't. It's really an application tool. You know, you put it up and you stand there and talk to somebody kind of through the rose. You walk close to somebody, move it in, you move it out. It begins to be a recognition actually of who you really are.
So anyway, those suggestions seem to help this person.
Yeah, and many others. So.
That's it. Let's have breakfast.
All right.
Let's have.
Great. Okay.
Let us have breakfast.
Have a good day.